We will again start off with a little bit of silent practice. So we'll take some time to sit, and I'll offer some guidance. Take some time now to really ground into a posture that you can sit in for this next little while. Finding a way to sit so that we are in firm, clear connection with the earth. So we're able to release, to give ourselves to the earth. And at the same time, and from this place of grounded stability, we sit tall, upright, and alert. And from here, from this posture, bring your attention to body sensations. Focus on what you feel. In order to make it easier to focus on what we feel, it can be very helpful to locate our awareness low in our body, to breathe from and with the muscles of our core, not so much using our head or throat or our chest, locating the breath in the core. We have an easier time staying with the direct experience of feeling. Thoughts may arise, either thoughts about our lives, or even thoughts about what we're feeling right now. If they do, no need to prevent that or fight with it or make it into an enemy. We simply rely on the momentum of this posture and breath, the momentum of our awareness in our low body, anchored in and by the breath, to ground us in feeling. And feel physical body sensations, feeling of the breath, of relaxation, of tightness within the body. And also feeling emotional body sensations, activity that is associated with various kinds of emotions. It's important that we directly feel that, and we let that in. The way that we can let that in is by not thinking about it, attending directly to it, not to stories about it. Just this body sensation as it is. Doesn't need to be understood, just needs to be experienced. Very good. Oh, we just did that. You all just did that. You sat here and experienced this moment of experience. Sat here and faced the sensations in your bodies right now. You should feel proud of that. Good to feel proud of that. Good to feel confident about that. And we are doing the work of training the human mind, of working on improving, cultivating, and transcending, going beyond, seeing through the human mind. And essential that we feel confident about that we have a sense of joy rooted in that. Even if the work itself may be hard sometimes, we have a lot of body sensations, they're very confusing, a lot of thoughts, it's very hard. Still, nonetheless, we all sat here and did this. Sat here for about 15 minutes. The only thing on our agenda being paying attention to body sensations. This is impressive. It's impressive, and it's unfortunately still somewhat rare in the modern world. And it's not only impressive, but urgently needed. Very important at this time that we cultivate, that we train mind, that we purify our own mind. Buddha was very clear about this. It's the beginning of the Anguttara Nikaya, recorded sayings of the Buddha. It's in the Book of the Ones, very beginning. He says there is nothing, he sees nothing more dangerous in the entire world, nothing more harmful in the entire world than the untrained, uncultivated, untamed human mind. And he sees nothing of greater benefit, nothing better, nothing more capable of doing more good, of doing more beneficial action in the world, causing more good in the world than the trained, tamed, cultivated human mind. So Ryu Forall, who's my teacher and the teacher at Maple, has been very clear about this over, a long time, but at least the last few weeks, as he has been talking about the coronavirus epidemic, pandemic. He's been very clear about this. He's made a clear statement that the greatest danger in this crisis is not the virus itself. It's the untrained human mind. That the virus, of course, is problematic, dangerous, but even in the worst case projections, the number of people who will die from it is not anywhere near as many as the number of people who will die from the reactions to it and from the far greater crises that have been produced by the human mind. And he's also been clear, the greatest hope in this crisis is not merely that we cure the virus. The greatest hope is that this crisis may result in people cultivating, training the human mind. This crisis may result in us doing the work of facing what we haven't faced, resolving what we haven't resolved, so that we can address the actual problems on this planet. The problems on the planet have been caused by the human mind. And therefore, we experience a crisis of conscience. We can see, and maybe not intellectually, but emotionally, and on a deep level, as we look around, as we observe the world, we can see what is happening, and we know that it is caused by the human mind. We can see the destruction of life that has resulted from our way of seeing things. We see the threat to all life from the development of technology by the untrained human mind, a threat to the future of all life in the world due to the development of technologies like artificial intelligence by those who have not resolved the issues of mind, the issues of greed, of hatefulness, of delusion, of ignorance. We can see this, and because of this, we have a crisis of conscience. And because we have a crisis of conscience, we have increasingly been questioning the stories that have led us here. Increasingly been just not believing anymore in the stories that brought us to this place. As I said in the description, and as we talked about last week, this puts us in a very similar position to a certain king in ancient India. King Ajatasattu, Ajatashratu, I believe is the Sanskrit, who committed patricide, killed his father in order to ascend to the throne in a kingdom in ancient India known as Magadha, who then, as well, came to reject the various stories, various ideas of his time, came to stop believing in these stories and came to search for something true, search for something real. And I think it's helpful for us to spend some time studying this, examining this search and the situation that he is in. So, there's a lot that's very interesting in this text regarding the journey from Ajatasattu's palace to the Buddha. Even prior to him getting to the Buddha, there's a lot interesting going on here. So one interesting feature of the story is that as Ajatasattu decides to go and seek the Buddha, so he's going to seek the Buddha in order to ask him a question. As he does this, he instructs his ministers to go and get the elephant vehicles prepared. Sort of a nice little ancient Indian piece of culture, a piece of what the life was like for a king in ancient India. Ajatasattu is going to go and see the Buddha. He's going to go and ask a question. And in order to do this, he undergoes an extremely elaborate process of preparation. An elaborate and somewhat unusual preparation is made. So he has 500 elephants prepared, as well as his own personal elephant. And he has 500 of his concubines, wives, women mounted on these elephants. So he's a king in ancient India. He has many wives, many concubines, and he is ensuring that all of these are with him as he goes to see the Buddha. So it's describing him going with his attendants carrying torches. This huge royal procession sets forth from the palace and goes to see the Buddha. This is, if we want to take it metaphorically, a metaphor, an analogy for our own preparation as we do this practice, as we move into this practice. We make sure that we have our ideas ready, our stories ready, we have our ego ready, and we bring that in to the practice. So we have this big royal procession that we bring with us all the time. Why? Because we're scared. We're nervous. We have this deep sense of insecurity, sense of me just as I am is not okay. This moment just as it is not okay. Have to get a different moment somehow, have to get a different experience somehow. All the time, when people are struggling with the practice, we're struggling because we have a sense that the practice isn't going well. And a lot of the time we have that sense because we're experiencing challenging sensations. We're experiencing unpleasant emotional body sensations, or we're experiencing physical pain, or we're tight, tense. Somehow or another, we're not practicing in the right way, and we wish we were practicing in a different way. This is like we've brought our elephants in with us. These elephants, women, these are the experiences that we're attached to, the ideas that we're attached to about how we should be practicing, about how we should be living our lives. And as we do this path, we gradually learn to work through that. Learn to set all of that aside. We realize that to face suffering is not mistaken. Realize that as we sit down and we do this practice, if challenging sensations arise, that is not necessarily a sign that there is a problem. In fact, often we have been using various stories that we have, various ideas that we have, as a way of avoiding precisely this experience. We've been telling ourselves that we need to be a certain way, making ourselves be that way, in order to not experience what we're experiencing. In order to experience a sense of peace. We really want to have a sense of peace as we do this practice, and not unreasonable. It's not unreasonable that we want this. I have heard someone say that mindfulness means that you feel peace. You sit down and you get to relax, and then you just feel really peaceful. It's so wonderful. We sit down, try to relax, and we just find ourselves getting more and more tense, more and more frustrated. We think, oh no, something's going wrong. But this is just the experience that is here for us. This moment of experience is just what is here for us. We have stored up this experience in our body, oftentimes in our gut, our torso, our viscera. We've stored up these experiences that we've been unwilling to face. And we then very often use views. We use ideas, we use narratives as a way of not facing that. We use these various views, ideas, stories as a way of not facing what we have to face, of not resolving what we have to resolve. And because of that, because our attachment to these views is deeply motivated, a desire to escape from suffering, to not experience what we're experiencing, we then flinch away from questioning these views. Flinch away from questioning the stories that we have grown accustomed to, that we have gained emotional peace with, that we've gained tranquility regarding. We have certain narratives that typically excuse us from certain dimensions of personal growth, or from certain dimensions of cultivation of mind, and we flinch away from questioning those narratives in order to not have to face what we have to face. This is what is known as spiritual bypassing. Spiritual bypassing means that we use a religion, we use a story as a way of not doing the work that we have to do on ourselves. And I would say that everyone has a religion. Each of us has a religion. We have narratives, we have stories that we believe in. And if we use those narratives, if we use those stories to avoid personal growth, that is spiritual bypassing. Though we're in this circumstance in which many of us are very stuck on certain views, certain ideas, certain opinions about how things should be run, how things should be done, it takes a real crisis to move us beyond these narratives, move us beyond these views, to force us to acknowledge that it's more important for us to resolve the issue in our own mind than it is for us to feel emotional peace right now. It takes a real crisis for us to realize that we have to face this, that we just have to do something, that it isn't enough to just keep reiterating the same stories, keep avoiding the same problems, that we actually have to do something now. So that's very exciting. That's what's so exciting about this time. A really exciting time in world history, because we now have a real crisis that people are aware of. Of course, we already had many crises, but we weren't aware of them. They didn't connect with us emotionally. This one has, for various reasons. And while, let's face it, most of us are not going to respond skillfully, we've seen people, even ourselves, doubling down on the same coping mechanisms, the same strategies of avoidance that we've been using, just doing that more. While that's going to be the case most of the time, some of us are responding skillfully. Some of us are using this crisis as an opportunity to go beyond our views, go beyond our narratives, to cultivate our mind, to look at and ultimately resolve the deep issues in the human mind. Some of us are doing this. This is now happening. Well, it's a reasonable question to ask how we can do this. In the case of Ajatasattu, he went to see the Buddha. He set out to go and see a certain spiritual teacher and ask some real questions. I would say that this is a good approach. We can, of course, metaphorically go and see the Buddha, which is to say we can sit down and practice, face this experience this moment directly, exactly as it is. And you could say is coming to see the Buddha. We're going towards the Buddha. We're going to meet the Buddha, which is just this moment experienced clearly, this moment experienced completely, this moment experienced without resistance, this moment experienced without filtering, this moment experienced without stories. This, you could say, if you wanted, metaphorically speaking, is Buddhahood. This is going to see the Buddha. That we practice in a way that will allow us to deepen our experience, deepen our concentration, to the point when we're able to experience this as it is. This is very good. This is a good way to respond to this crisis. We should be doing this. I'm talking about social distancing, saying that it's very important to do social distancing right now. Well, good news. There's a form of social distancing that has been practiced for a long time. People have been doing a form of social distancing for many millennia, and it's called meditation. We can do this. Have to stay alone, have to stay isolated. Why not do that skillfully? Why not do a meditation technique? Why not use this as a meditation retreat? Why not use this as an opportunity to practice the original form of social distancing? But let's face it, we often find that we don't do this. We don't practice. We don't cultivate mind. I read a post on Facebook recently. One of my friends posted this, so I've been reading Facebook sometimes, try to connect with people, stay connected with what people are going through. And someone wrote a nice long post where they said, "This quarantine has really been going great. I've been exercising, running every day. I've been practicing meditation and gratitude journaling and lifting weights. I'm already down some number of pounds in terms of weight. I'm realizing all these great things, and I'm doing so much work. I'm being so productive in terms of my job, what I want to do in the world." And then new paragraph. I don't know whose status that is, but it sounded great, so I just wanted to post it. I just wanted to copy and paste it. Well, let's face it, we may not be doing that. We're quarantined, we're cooped up inside, and we, let's face it, don't rise to the level of the occasion. We fall to the level of our training. We fall to the level of our conditioning. And so it's been very challenging to get exercise. It's been very challenging to focus, to do things. Very hard to practice, hard to do meditation. So I have a further suggestion for how to make use of this time skillfully, how to respond skillfully to the awareness of the urgency that this crisis has brought about, which is that you move. You physically move. You sort out your things, give them away, or put them into storage, and physically move into a community that will hold you accountable to doing what you have seen is important to do. Around here, people have to exercise every day. Well, it's common, it's usual, it's typically the case that people exercise every single day. A part of the day where you're actually not allowed to do anything other than exercise. You have to exercise that part of the day, and if you don't, then someone is going to make you do it. I'm going to ask you to do it. It's very kind. We have a part of the day that's set aside just for meditation. You have to do it. Everyone does it. Everyone sits down and everyone faces this experience, resolves the deep issues in this experience, our aversion to this experience, our fear in this experience. We actually face that. Don't do it, someone will come and get you. They'll help you do it. They'll hold you accountable to doing it. So I suggest that you move into a community that is doing this work. Move into a place that is doing this work. It doesn't have to be oak or maple. These aren't the only places that are doing it. These are, of course, places that are doing it, but they're not the only ones. You could move into many other excellent places to do this kind of training. Places that are designed to help us to question and escape from our religions, to help us question and escape from our narratives. Places like, for example, just in the local area in California, Tassajara, or Green Gulch, or Mangalam. These are various Buddhist training centers in some distance of Bay Area. Abhayagiri Forest Monastery in the Thai forest tradition is about 2.5 hours north of here. There are various Benedictine monasteries. There's a place called Zaytuna College, an Islamic college that's just down the road from us. There are various rationalist group houses that are doing a form of this kind of work. So I would say, go there. Move into one of those places. Why? So that we can learn something that wasn't what we wanted to learn. That we can do the personal growth not merely that we want to do, because that kind of personal growth we'll just do anyway, but also the kind of personal growth that we don't want to do. We can realize something besides what we expected to realize. We can be asked to look at and question our religions and discover, is this true? Is this accurate? Is this beneficial? Why? Because our way of seeing things determines our life. We just act according to the perspective that we have failed to successfully question. Any perspectives, any narratives that we don't successfully question, we just believe and act according to. This life then creates the world. We together share collective understanding, collective perspective, and that is the world that we create. Based on that, we create a world. So it's essential that we create a world that is in accord with truth, that is in accord with reality, that's in accord with nature, that's in accord with benefit to all living beings. And in order to do that, we have to go beyond the human mind. Have to set that as a goal. That we ourselves will escape from, cease to be confined by, limited by the perspectives that we've inherited. In order to do this, I would say that it's very important that we actually move into a place that is doing this training, that is doing this cultivation of mind. And you should know that as we do this, it's very likely that, it's not guaranteed, of course, but it's very likely that at some point we will be suddenly gripped by fear. You may have already felt a sense of resistance, of fear, at just hearing the suggestion that we move into a place that sees things differently from us. Already, I don't know about that. It sounds dangerous, probably a trick. Well, this is actually mentioned in the sutra, in the Samaññaphala Sutra, right after King Ajatasattu sets out with his royal procession. He has his elephants with him. He's feeling as confident as can be given the circumstances as a king. And it says in the text, then when he's not far from the mango grove, from the place where the Buddha was staying, he was suddenly gripped by fear, trepidation, and terror. So he's frightened and agitated and terror-stricken. And so he says to his minister, to the one who suggested that he go see the Buddha in the first place, "You aren't deceiving me, are you, friend Jivaka? You aren't betraying me. You aren't about to turn me over to my enemies. How could there be such a large company of bhikkhus, 1,250 bhikkhus, that was the number of monks that were traveling with the Buddha at the time, give or take, without any sound of sneezing or coughing or any noise at all?" He's terror-stricken, frightened, agitated. And he thinks, he's immediately suspicious. You aren't trying to deceive me, are you? You aren't betraying me, are you? You aren't about to turn me over to my enemies. And this is reasonable. Of course he would think that. Of course he would have that reaction. Because he is the sort of person who deceives, who betrays. He killed his father. He committed patricide. He participated in a plot to kill his father. So of course he's going to wonder, are you going to participate in a plot to harm me, to kill me, to turn me over to my enemies? Of course he's afraid. He's afraid because that's what people are like for him. He has that mind. And because of that, he sees everyone else having that mind because we just project the mind that we have onto everyone around us. So he's frightened, and in the same way we are frightened. And I say that we are frightened because we also have this guilt. We haven't, it's not quite the same for us, of course. We haven't intentionally killed our father. And yet we have given our lives to ways of seeing things, to views that have destroyed, that have killed our mother, that have killed Mother Earth, that have killed 90% of the animals, bigger than, I don't know, a gerbil on this continent in the last century. And while you can say, well, we just didn't know any better, we were ignorant, still, this constant flinching away from questioning these views, is that intentional or not? We're constantly giving ourselves, giving our lives to these views that we don't want to question because we don't want to lose this feeling of emotional peace, of having come to terms with a certain way of seeing things. Is that intentional? You have to really look at that. And we then know, this is the significant part in all of this, is that we are flinching away from questioning our own views, flinching away from questioning our own narratives. And because of that, we see everyone else flinching away from questioning their own narratives, questioning their own views. We project that on everyone else. We can't do otherwise. We can't advise otherwise. That would be hypocritical. And we know that would be hypocritical. So we just see. We can't expect you to be anyone other than someone who flinches away from questioning your own views, someone who flinches away from the truth in order to experience temporary emotional peace. We just see other people that way, and then we know. We know that they aren't that trustworthy. We know that when it comes down to it, if their view tells them to do one thing and their integrity tells them to do another, they will do what the view says. If social pressure tells them to do one thing and their integrity tells them to do another, they'll do what social pressure says. Why? Because that's what we will do. We know that about ourselves. We know for ourselves that we will follow social pressure. We know for ourselves that we will follow our ideas, our opinions. And so naturally, we feel scared about being around anyone who holds a different view, a different perspective from us, because they're not going to support us. They're not going to collude with us. They're not going to prop up our story. And that feels deeply threatening. So, Jivaka says, do not be afraid, great king. Do not be afraid. And not deceiving you, your majesty, or betraying you, or turning you over to your enemies. He's able to reassure Ajatasattu in the same way. We can reassure each other, have true friends, friends who we spend time with, friends who we talk to, who we just see, and have to continually see again and again, have integrity. We have friends, we get to know people who just continually demonstrate that they have integrity. They're able to reassure us. That's why it's very important that we spend time with people who see things differently from us. And cultivate relationships with people who are doing training, who are cultivating the higher mind, who are striving to grow in terms of integrity, in terms of going beyond our preferences, in part so that we can see this. So, I have been in this position. A lot of people out in the Bay Area. It's sort of unusual for, I don't know how to say it, Bay Areans, denizens of the Bay Area, to at least the ones who I talk to, the ones who tend to come to be friends with me, the ones who I tend to be friends with. A bit unusual for them to spend time with people who are cultivating the higher mind. And so with a lot of people, I'm now in this position of being a friend, being connected with them, and there's this kind of, there's like these two different perspectives that are both there. One is, well, he's part of a monastery and that's creepy and weird, and they're probably brainwashing people and that's evil. And no, also they don't get enough sleep and that's probably bad and blah, blah, blah. And then on the other hand is just, well, Joshin seems like a pretty reasonable person. He just keeps on being friendly and interested and open, which I guess I have been. I've been trying anyway. Not claiming perfection here by any means, but I've been trying. And I genuinely do care. I have just continued to genuinely care about everyone who is connected with me. And we just have these warring perspectives. The sense, I don't know if I can trust this. And also, the person's just there. It's like that if we know other people in the training too. I have friends who are in the training. I think, uh-oh, you're in some kind of weird, creepy cult. And yet we keep on being friends with them. If we keep on being friends with them, and we keep on seeing what this person's like, keep on getting to know them. And I have to somehow square that. And I know for me, one of the most significant shifts in my coming to trust this, and my coming into this training, was seeing exactly that those who cultivate this path, those who practice this path, are trustworthy. They are more trustworthy. They have more integrity, or at least they listen to and act according to their integrity more often. I could see that Soryu, the teacher in Vermont, just meant what he was saying. I was very suspicious of him for a long time, very frightened of him for a long time, very agitated, terror-stricken around him for a long time, for many months, and then left that system of training, wanted to go to the other side of the country before I made any decisions about it, whether I would keep going with it, whether I would stay in touch with it, and then didn't. I just didn't really stay in touch. The whole time I'm sitting there and I'm wondering, so Soryu was giving talks like this to the public every week, and it reminds me of, church growing up. And church to me means that someone is getting a bunch of people together to prop up a church. And that's basically what this is about. Getting a bunch of people together so that everyone can sit down and prop up a religion, a church, for the sake of that religion's survival. And that's the point. And so Soryu is giving these talks every week to the public. I think he's like a preacher. I'd say that to myself. He reminds me of a minister, of a whatever it is. I don't trust him. But then after a few years of watching him and watching the community that he had grown and put together, and watching from many different positions, from up close, from within it, and from far away as an outsider without any investment in it, without any emotional investment in it or any other kind of investment in it, I just gradually had to face that he actually meant it. He wasn't saying those things because he wanted to just prop up some religion or some ego or some personality. That wasn't the point. He just meant what he was saying. And he was able to demonstrate what he was saying, which was that to live a life in integrity, to strive to live a life in integrity, is essential. He just had integrity. He had integrity. This is the significance of spending time with people who hold right view, who hold some form of right view, which is to say some form of the view that our own actions matter, that our own life matters, that integrity matters, that love matters. Some form of that view. if we spend time around people who hold that view, even if it's different from the view that we have, which is often some form of what I do doesn't matter. We won't get into it today just due to time, but there's often some form of excusing of certain actions or excusing us from the consequences of certain actions. We spend time around people who hold right view, and then we come to face the reality that they are trustworthy. We discover that they are trustworthy. It's a very uncomfortable and disconcerting realization. It's annoying. You don't want to be that way. This right view isn't appealing to me. It isn't mimetically optimized. It isn't winning the battle for my attention and my approval. It's kind of trite. We're annoyed by it. And yet we gradually have to face that it's true. That those who hold this are able to behave in ethical ways. That those who hold this view make better decisions. You just have to face that. So, Jivaka advises Ajatasattu, go forward, great king. Go straight forward. Those are lamps burning in the pavilion hall. It says, go straight forward. What does it mean to go straight forward? It means that we give ourselves to this investigation, to this practice, to this cultivation of integrity fully, wholeheartedly. That's what it means to go straight forward. That we don't turn away from this experience. That is to go straight forward. Once again, let's establish a posture that we'll use for this next practice period. Well worth spending a lot of time exploring this posture, exploring different ways of sitting, different ways of standing. This posture has an enormous impact on our state of mind. One way of working with this posture is to explore sitting so that our tailbone is tucked under. Our spine is firmly connected to our base, which is firmly connected to the ground. and to open and elevate our torso, our chest, and the back of our head. Clear, tall, proud, open heart, actually moving forward in space and up with our solar plexus, and elevated, extended crown of the head. This top of the spine, top of the head is pulled up towards the sky. And having established this posture, draw your attention to your own sense of integrity. Considering, if you like, actions that you have taken that have been kind, beneficial to yourself and to other living beings. If nothing else, consider that you are right now sitting here. You right now are sitting with the intention to have this experience. Sitting with the intention not to avoid this experience, but to experience this experience. Very important that we allow our own integrity to nourish us, to be a source of authentic joy, of legitimate joy. While we may know there is farther to go, we have not yet achieved perfection, nonetheless, we can celebrate what we have done. We reward ourselves if we celebrate what we've done, and it's more likely that we'll do more good things in the future. We instead throw it away. That's not good enough. I have to be perfect before I feel joy. Well, it's a good way of preventing us from doing anything in the future. Good way of preventing us from doing good things in the future. Very important that we let this joy in. Having established that clarity regarding our integrity, that joy, to whatever extent, great or small, it is present. We now give ourselves to the adventure of having this experience. Feel this feeling in your body. How to stay with this moment of experience. Welcome it completely. If there's anger, sadness, frustration, just welcome that completely. Say yes to this experience. There's happiness, joy, satisfaction. Welcome that completely. Say yes to this experience. The anger, the frustration, the sadness falls away. Let it go completely. Just say yes to the end of that experience. The happiness, joy, ease falls away. Just let it go completely. Say yes to the end of this experience. When stories come up, ideas come up. No need to fight with them. And simply return to this experience. I say, thank you, story, but right now I'm interested in experiencing this sensation in my body. If you like, you can take a conciliatory approach around stories. And thank you, story. You've kept me safe. You've kept me emotionally well-adjusted and functional for a long time. But now I'm ready to grow beyond you. Don't need you anymore. Ready to face this experience. whatever it is. I'm a bad person. I can't do this practice. I'm failing. I'm so bad at everything. And say, thank you, story. You kept me safe, emotionally functional for a while, but ready to try dropping you now. Ready to go beyond you now. I'm a good person. I'm so good at this. It's going great. Say thank you, story. You've helped me with my emotional regulation, but now I'm ready to face this experience. And just keep on returning to this body sensation, this experience, using the posture, using the breath, until we discover that this body is practicing. That it is our bodies that are doing this practice, not our minds. That our bodies focus our awareness, our bodies clarify our state of mind. And we find that we've become grossly distracted. Mind has been wandering for a while. say more than 10 seconds, we can simply reestablish this posture, remind ourselves of our integrity, and once again, practice. We're still doing the technique, still remembering to implement mindfulness, and there's no need to change anything about that. But if we've forgotten to do the technique for a long time, say 10 seconds, it may be helpful to explore sitting in a different way, adjusting our posture, and trying out different configuration of our body. Just see how that goes with the practice. whatever we're experiencing at this time, just have that experience. Spend so much time trying to get the right experience. Instead of that, try just having this experience. If there's pain, let there be pain. If there's confusion, let there be confusion. Very significant for us. We come to the point when we're more interested in this experience as it is than we are in the idea of the experience we should be having. When we're willing to experience this as it is, that changes our entire life. No need to acquire any different experience. Therefore, we don't need to acquire any views. When many people are willing to have this experience, that changes the entire world. We're willing to just have the world, not make it into a world that we collectively prefer. Willing to live, willing to die, means that we don't have to kill. Means that we aren't in conflict with nature. So now I have a time for questions and comments, and reports, discussion, and a chance to talk about our experience, express from the state of mind of the practice, or to bring up anything else you'd like to bring up at this time. We're also welcome to continue to sit together in silence.
What exactly do you mean by nature? Because in one way of defining nature, hold on,
we can't hear you, Daniel.
What exactly?
Technical issue over here. What was that? Say again.
What exactly do you mean by nature? Because one way of defining nature, at least, would have it be directly against nature to refuse to kill to live, and thus framing nature uh, as pretty bad because nature gave us all of the evolutionary structures and incentives that led humanity and various other species to be in a state where they kill other sentient beings to stave off death.
What's your sense of it?
What?
What's your sense of it?
What's my sense of what you mean by nature? Perhaps something like the sum total of all sentient beings, perhaps the sum total of the ideal states of all sentient beings, or something like that.
For the what?
The ideal states of all sentient beings.
Oh, nice. Oh, the ideal states of all sentient beings. No, that's nice. Yeah, so this is a good point. What is nature is actually a significant question. The one thing that could be meant by nature, of course, is that nature is, the animals, say. Another thing that could be meant is that nature is all living beings. Maybe nature is everything in the world, all of the things. Maybe nature is the development of all living things. These aren't bad answers. These aren't they're a good start as far as answers go, but they aren't complete answers to that question. So nature means first of all, the whole world. Everything as it is, as you say, all living beings. But not just that. So as we look more and more closely into this experience, we actually discover that this experience goes beyond the world. That this experience isn't just the mere world, which is different from this experience being separate from the world. So we are willing to experience something beyond our own perspective, something beyond me, my own body, my own views. We open up, of course, to the entire world, and this is shocking and vast and huge and inconceivable. And as you say, it consists of a lot of activity, of animals that kill and eat other animals, of as in Buddhism, it said mutual devouring. We look even more closely and you see that it actually goes beyond that. It actually goes beyond the world. That to be in accord with our own nature isn't in conflict with the world, but it also isn't the world. So, first of all, yes, obviously, we know that there's still going to be problems in the world if, say, the human species gets over its current issue. And its current issue, I would say, is the way that I would describe it. The current issue. This is what Peace Pilgrim believed the current issue of humanity to be, and I believe the current issue still is. The present task to work on in terms of our development is to stop killing each other. That's the current task for us to work on, is to stop killing each other, and I would say unnecessarily. You want to add unnecessarily and allow that animals need to eat, humans need to eat. So maybe there has to be some killing, practically speaking, but to stop needlessly killing each other. To stop, for example, setting up the world so that 1 billion people starve regularly, that 1 billion people don't have access to clean water, all of these things, to stop killing people in that way. But there will still be problems. The Buddha was clear on this point. This is the first noble truth. There are problems. There are going to be problems still. But I would say that there is a bit of a difference if the natural order of things is allowed to manifest. So I'm not here talking about the deep sense of nature. I'm just talking about the natural world. I'm just talking about the more limited definition of nature. But within that limited definition of nature, if we allow things to happen in balance and harmony, we've reined in the human mind, we've stopped unnecessarily killing, then while there are still problems, there aren't the same degree of problems, there aren't the same kind of problems. And it's actually, I would say, kind of okay that there are problems. It's okay that people die. It's okay that people have to struggle, and animals die, and animals have to struggle. The issue is that we are creating a situation in which we may kill everyone. We may kill everyone in order to have a certain way of life. We may kill everyone in order to avoid facing certain experiences. So I'm saying we should stop doing that.
And as such, the problems of, in the state of things, absent some of this, people still die, sentient beings still die and suffer, etc. Those, while still problems and something to be fought against, once those are the main problems left, they're better problems to have than the ones we have now of everything might die.
Yeah, I don't even know that fighting against them is quite the right way of looking at it. I think
or
that,
trying to resolve them or whatever, trying to create a better world still than that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Although I would actually suggest that a lot of what has gotten us into this current situation is that, just like with our sitting, we were sitting here just now for a while, we may have noticed that we wanted to have a different experience. We wanted to be more relaxed, have less pain, have more joy, have less fear. That kind of will, that wanting a different experience based on an idea of what our experience should be, actually produces a lot of the conflict. And we actually can find, if we just drop that, we're just willing to have this experience as it is, even if it's painful, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's scary, sad, somehow there's a kind of peace, there's a kind of tranquility in it. And I would suggest that we should look very carefully at this. So I think that we should work to improve the world. I think that it is important to even sometimes fight against objective situations. I'm obviously advocating that we improve the world beyond our current state of the world, beyond our current way of seeing things and our current existential crisis, crisis of existential risk, that we carefully examine that.
carefully examine the sense that this is a problem and I need to solve it. There's a lot of that sense that this is a problem and I need to solve it. When done from an unskillful, from an untrained, from a limited perspective, has created much bigger problems.
Right. This is a problem and I need to solve it, says one person, and casually creates 3 more problems unaware of them.
Yeah, exactly. Well said. Well, thanks for that. Nice to hear from you.
Likewise, thanks for your answer.
I have a question about the practice, an experience I had during it, which is that I was experiencing discomfort in like my torso area, and as I was like, you know, trying to be with it and just feeling like the discomfort is just it's more and more like the kind of the more I stay with it, the more it just feels like a lot. And then
by the way, this is Alice. Maybe you can't see her, but
should I move?
Yeah, maybe.
No, okay.
Maybe it needs to move.
There you go. I'm not sure where I can move to.
Yeah,
Oh, hi. I've been helping with the tech AV, so right. Let's see. So I noticed like, oh, if I'm focusing on like sensations like here, then it's like, whoa, they feel like a lot. And then I somehow had the thought of like, oh, like the rest of my body seems, you know, there are places in my body that's has less activity, so more restful. So for example, my legs. So then I let my attention just go to my legs, and then like the sensations in my torso, they started like just decreasing in intensity. So that felt like, and you know, that felt like a good direction. That felt like, oh, I did something good. But at the same time, was that also kind of bypassing?
Right. So there's a trying to come up with a good metaphor. I don't know if I can come up with a good metaphor. But basically, you're in your body. You're working in your body. You're not so involved in thinking and stories. So you've moved into the body. You're now in the arena in which this can take place. You're in the arena in which the sensation is happening and in which the embodied experience is taking place. So it's quite skillful, actually, to be able to turn away from the loudest thing in experience and settle attention into the rest of the body. So a lot of the time what's actually happening, at least in my experience, is that with these kinds of tension, we are having the experience, and then we think, oh no, I can't have this experience, it's the wrong experience, or we feel that, we have that sense, and then we try to get rid of it, which winds up creating that experience. The tension is created by our fear and lack of equanimity with the tension. So we can turn towards stories as a way of having tranquility, as a way of not having to face the tension. That actually does kind of work, right? It actually does kind of resolve the tension a little bit. Makes it a little bit easier. The issue is that it's still there. The underlying issue is still there, it hasn't been faced. So to turn away, you're still turning away, but you're turning away in the body. You're turning away to a restful sensation. This is allowing you to have more equanimity with this sensation. It was allowing it to untangle itself. that make sense?
Yeah, when you say like, using stories, is an example perhaps like, oh, I'm feeling really tight here, and maybe I tell myself, oh, like, yeah, this is what training is supposed to feel like. So it's
Yeah, that could be a
it's
form of it.
Yeah. Whereas like if I move my attention to somewhere else in the body, like I'm still staying I'm still in the in the focus space of body sensations. And so it's not like I'm turning away from the sensations here. I'm more like maybe even like expanding my attention to kind of the rest of my body. So.
Well, the story isn't just there's a lot of story content, right? So if we're sitting there and we're thinking about something that we need to do later in the day or earlier in the day, oftentimes that actually is a response to something that we don't want to face. An experience. So the technique of focusing on rest is still turning away. It's a turn away method. The difference is that you're kind of getting closer to it and more acquainted with it. So you're in the right, ballpark. You're not. So it's one option to just go to the next house over. There's someone who you don't want to deal with in this house. One option is you go to the next house over and sit in that house for a while. That can actually be a good idea sometime. So going into stories is not always unskillful. It isn't always mistaken. It isn't always a bad thing. But it's a different thing to sit in the same room and not engage. It's still kind of turning away. You're turning away from the conflict, but you're turning away less. So Shinzen actually talks about this as a way of working with challenging uncomfortable body sensations is that you sort of go out to the edges. You hang out in the places where there's less challenging sensation and you kind of, from there, welcome it in, and from there, let more of it in. So you're still engaging with it, you're still working with it, you're just maybe not quite ready to turn directly towards it just yet. Okay. You're getting there.
I have a question regarding this and what we were talking about last night. Would that be an example of feel rest, essentially in practice, and what she was doing?
Yes. So in terms of, we're learning a certain system of meditation here, Shinzen Young's unified mindfulness system, and in that system, this is an example of feel rest. You're doing a technique of feel rest. Definitely.
So my next question is like maybe what I was doing before, like trying to stay with that sensation when it feels like, oh, this is like really intense. Might I be like maybe is that still good to keep trying to stay with that, or is that like somehow unskillful, or like I'm feeding it, or I'm actually like unconsciously, not okay with it, and that's why it felt so kind of uncomfortable and intense.
So it really depends. I'd say as long as you're doing a technique of some sort, you're working with it with mindfulness, then that's some degree of skillfulness. And then the rest of it we just kind of learn through continued practice. So when to turn away, when to turn towards, when to switch techniques entirely, when to just stay with it. This is something that we work out. You just have to discover how to do this. So you're expressing an art form as you do a meditation practice. And so you just bring greater and greater skill to that. So, for example, say if someone is learning to paint, they sit down in front of a canvas and they paint a bunch of colors onto the canvas. You could say, well, they're not skillful, it isn't a beautiful painting. But I would suggest that a more useful way to look at it is that they're at the canvas. They're doing the practice, they're working with it in some way. If they just stay at the canvas for long enough, then soon after some time, they will be painting beautiful paintings. The paintings they're painting right now are actually already beautiful. They're an expression of their personality. If they go away from the canvas, if they stop painting, then they're not going to get better at painting. In the same way, you stay with some kind of practice, and you just keep on discovering more and more about how to do it. You just have the feedback of this experience to work from.
Thank you.
Margaret, hi.
Hi, Joshin. Nice to see you. Thank you for a very thoughtful talk. If we can, circle back just a little to the first question about what is nature. I just want to ask you about something that maybe you said. You know, my memory is not perfect. I'm sure you remember every word you say. Did I hear you say that wanting things to be different is not natural?
When?
Go ahead.
When? I'm just curious what the context was.
It was near the end of your talk. I actually think the talk was, the comment was probably in reference to actually sitting and having our mind wander, or B, desiring maybe our experience to be different than what it is. So that catches in my mind thinking that, of course, really, I'm going to say yes, because in many circumstances, I can't say about all circumstances, is that if I'm doing this, but I'm desiring that, well, then I'm not here, present, doing this. And I'd like to give an example of that, which was a few years ago. I was at the beach with a friend of mine. And we were in Ogunquit. It was gorgeous. And there were a few clouds in the sky. And a cloud drifted across the sun. And she said, if that cloud was over there, this would be perfect. I thought I had fallen through the earth. I was like, what kind of a thing is that to say? I was astonished, right? Not to mention that I had all I could do to go stop from just going, what? But I mean, that's my example of desiring something that's completely unnatural. Missing the whole entire point of that beautiful moment on the beach to reposition a cloud. People are amazing. So back to, if I'm sitting and I'm struggling and I think, oh, I really want this to be a lot easier, or perhaps, it's just not it's not being aware in the moment of the natural condition of my sit or my body. Am I reading that right?
Well, I would say it was a good question. Of course, very deep and significant question. Though, of course, what we're experiencing right now is nature, right? You could just say that. You could take that to be the case. We have a tendency to like to come up with something to fight about, something to fight with in experience. We Mm. Mm. It's a good question. I feel nervous, sweating.
Don't be sweaty. Maybe we could parse it out a little, because the more I think about it, so it's natural. So we have a lot of natural tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
It's natural to maybe create this conflict within ourselves. There's the left and the right of everything. So that we could say is natural to a point.
Yeah. Or you could say it's unnatural, and we're working with it. Be another way to say it. In some sense, it is natural. In another sense, well, maybe there's something seems weird to say, more natural. Very strange to say. Doesn't make sense. In any case, we can just face the experience of trying to make this experience different from how it is. We can have equanimity with that experience. This is one of Saryu's, sayings. One of the things that he repeats often. You've probably heard it before.
Probably.
That we always have perfect equanimity with something. So we're always in complete harmony with something. So we may be having this experience, and it's just like a sunny or cloudy day that we don't have any complaints about. The clouds are all in the right place because we're not worried about them being in the wrong place. This is natural. We're having equanimity with this experience. But maybe we decide, no, that cloud should be in a different place. And then we're fighting with this experience. But we have perfect equanimity with fighting with this experience. And then maybe we say, well, to decide that this cloud should be in a different place is unnatural. That would be mistaken. I should stop doing that. And so now we're fighting with our fight with experience. But we now have perfect equanimity with the fight with experience. And good news, it's our mind's nature that can't, our minds just aren't capable of holding many layers more than that. And so it all falls apart after the next one or two, and suddenly we're experiencing a new moment of nature.
Okay, well, I actually had put in my note the word equanimity, which I think in my mind was going to be the solution or be part of the answer. So I appreciate that we got to there, and I'll think about it more because I'm interested.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, it's sort of a shame that we're not in person right now.
Pardon me?
It's sort of a shame that we're not in person right now. It was a very good question.
I know, it would be nice to sit with y'all. It looks beautiful there. Yeah. Thank you.
There's a story in the Zen tradition kind of along these lines. It's a story where someone just asks a master a challenging question about the Dharma. I won't go into the detail. It's the story is known as Hyakujo's fox. Maybe you're familiar with it, maybe not. Not too important. The point is, the master is relating this story about causality and the consequences of good and bad actions. And then a student asks the master, I guess you kind of need the story in order to have the context. So the story goes that some practitioner, some master taught on a certain mountain for a while, and then at one point was asked, is the awakened person subject to causality? Are they subject to the laws of cause and effect? Are they confined by causality? And he said no. And on account of giving that wrong answer, was doomed to be reincarnated 500 times as a fox. So one day, this person, the individual, their spirit or something, came and saw this other master and said, hey, I gave this wrong answer, and because of that, I've been a fox for 500 lifetimes. Help me out here. And So the master, and so the master says, okay, and the person asks the same question. They say, is the awakened person subject to causality? And the master responds by saying, the awakened person does not ignore causality. After which the person was able to leave their fox life. They were able to escape from that evil karma. So the master is relating this story to the monastery later on in the evening, or in the day, and someone asks. So that master was asked a question and gave a wrong answer, and because of that, got reincarnated a bunch of times as a fox. But what happens if a different master always keeps on giving flawless answers to challenging questions about the Dharma? What's the fate of that person? What's that person's fate? And so the master responded to this question by saying, why don't you come a little closer and I'll tell you. And so the person did, and then it's Zen, and so there's a different standard about the appropriateness of using physical expression to make points. Not that we would have done that, but it's...
Yeah, well, maybe it's a good thing we're over here.
Does this mean that the fate of a master who always gives flawless answers is to be a deliverer of physical violence, then?
It's worth looking closely at that answer.
Boy, Daniel, you're on the ball.
It's worth looking closely at that answer. This is something that's worth examining carefully.
So Pam has a question about being in a community that can hold ourselves to go beyond.
Yeah, just bring it up. It seems important. I love today. This is one of the highlights of my week. I really like this group, and especially today. And it's a kind of a personal crisis in meaning, is how does somebody go beyond, even with some kind of support? Do I have to go all the way to joining a community and leaving where I live and leaving my source of income? There's got to be something in between that.
Yeah, right. So of course, one approach is, as you say, leave where you live, leave your source of income, just enter the training. That is one approach. I would be a hypocrite if I didn't suggest that approach. That is one approach, and it's the approach that I've taken, and so I'll just maybe leave that there. I want to know my opinions about various approaches being good or useful. Well, my opinions are demonstrated by my life, but obviously we have to be practical. And it isn't always appropriate or skillful or even possible to leave our situation in the world. Maybe we're caring for people, we are involved in projects that matter. And so at the end of the day, you have to just find a way to make it work. And one way, of course, is just as you've done today. You continue to participate in this community.
Yeah.
We all got something like 45 minutes of practice today. Maybe more if we were practicing during the talk. So that's fantastic. That's really incredible. We may also make use of accountability structures in this group. So you may ask someone to check in about whether you're practicing or not. Just have a buddy, and every morning you say, after you've done your sitting for the day, I practiced. And then they come and ask you, hey, did you practice today? A way of having a bit more of that community accountability structure with you, even if it's remote. And then, of course, there's also the possibility of visiting, spending time at a place like this, maybe a few days or a week, maybe even a little bit longer, although a few days or a week are often challenging already. And then there's another possibility, which is that you move into a house on the property of the monastery and lead a lay life. There are those in this call who are doing that.
Yeah, and I'm inspired by that. Yes.
So another possible way forward is to continue to have a stream of income and continue to work in the world as you live in a community like this.
Good. Thank you. Good, good. I've got some of those structures already in my life, but I wanted you to know, and this community that I really value, to know how important that is, to be clever and to be in a position of the most help. So thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate you being here. Oh, we're just about at time now. It's about 4. I think we will finish there for today. Again, just really nice to see you all. I'm continually glad that you come and that we can spend time together. I hope that we are able to spend more time together going forward, maybe even in person, as safety and health and such allow. Please take good care of yourselves and practice, and I hope to see you soon.